This video is about expressing emotion in abstract art on a situation or event on different days by using serial imagery technique. Hi guys, my name is Ingrid van der Heijden and I'm a visual artist. Some of you might remember me from Art Week in school, back in the days when the school was still open. Well, Art Week will look a little bit different this time. We will be using videos to show a certain technique. So this video is about serial imagery. Serial imagery is the repetition of one image in many variations or forms. I want to draw your attention to two well-known artists who have used this technique in their work. The first one is Claude Monet, who used as subject haystacks, and he painted the haystacks in different colors, but repeatedly. The second one is Andy Warhol, who used, for instance, his Campbell's soup cans. He mimicked the repetition and uniformity of the advertisement by carefully reproducing the same image across each individual canvas. He varied the label by its contents. I will in short explain how I made the basis for my COVID-19 project. First, I decided to do a 30 days emotional expression on how I felt every single day during lockdown. Using serial imagery, I was able to visualize this. One fixed fact is that it's the virus which is not going anywhere and determines my day. So I decided on a round shape symbolizing this virus and repeat this every day to be a constant. So I made a few more square pieces of light canvas, 40 by 40. Since I wanted to bring them all together, I counted a little bit extra, few centimeters for the seam. With the spray can, I created a round shape. A few times, in order to bring in some variation, I used some string or fabric to cover before I sprayed. Of course, you don't need to make this work. It is just an example and explains the thinking process. Later on in the video, I will give an idea that you can use serial imaging technique and have a much quicker result. Of course, later on you can try to make a bigger series that goes over a longer time frame. Let's look at the day in, I explained a few days what I was thinking when After a first day of confusion, which I tried to show with all different kinds of black and white, the next day I wanted to know what the COVID virus was all about. So I looked it up on the internet and I started to write the explanation of the virus and all the consequences. Another one is, for instance, I used some text that I had written on Chinese paper and I torn the words out. This is in Dutch, but it means like, does he also have it? So that was a question that went around that day in my head, that the person that is sneezing, Does he have it? Another one, for instance, is one that I made in fabric. And I sew the fabric on the square later on with the sewing machine. So this is a blank one, because there's also days that I wasn't really worried, that I thought, well, the virus is there, but there is nothing to worry about. Then another day, for instance, is this one, that it's like we're all connected. So I made it a little bit more visible with the black wire. See? This is just in short. Now we go to the project that I will give some ideas for you to try out. So serial images means that you have to work with different canvases or papers from about the same size. So I used this small block. So I took 9 of them. So you can actually do 3 on each side, like this. So you have a total of 9 rectangles that you can add together at the end. You can take any size of paper or fabric or anything that you can lay your hands on, as long as they are multiple. So you have to have a few to get the effect of the serial imagery. So now you have to take a constant that you use over these 9 pieces. I will give you an example. It is, you can use anything you want that inspires you as an object. So let's say I take one. So I took a CD, a bad one, of course, that you don't need anymore, to use as a round image on these papers. So this one will go on all 9 papers. I use a spray can, which I like to use, because it's easy to work and you get instant effect. So if you use a spray can, please make sure you have around a lot of protection, that you don't spray mom's kitchen floor. You shake it really well, that the paint is mixed well. And when you spray, you keep it about 10-15 centimeters from the object, and you try to spray in waves. I'll show you. This is one example to start with. So you have to do all 9 like this to get this repetition. I will take another one, but not to make them all the same. You can actually use some thread or wire before you put on the round object. I'm going to take another can because this one is almost finished. Shake it well, because it's a new one. So I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting, that you can see the wire sticking out. Best is to wear gloves if you spray. I don't have time to get them, so but you should prepare it better. And you spray over the 2 objects, carefully take them off. And as you see, this one already as an additional effect of the wire that I put on before spraying. So try to make all 9 of them a little bit different, but still the same. This is going to be your starting point. For this one, I will use some other fabric to put on to make it a bit more interesting. But every time again, I use the same round CD. I put some gloves on just to be a little bit more clean. Take the spray can, again. You don't have to fill the whole paper. Parts of it makes it interesting. Okay, take it off. As you can see, gives a total other effect than the other wire. Of course, you don't need to use black. You can also use another color if you prefer that. So to make a bit of variation, I'm gonna take one paper and put a bit of basis on. We will see later on how that will work. So I have some gesso, and I'll put that on the paper before I spray the round object on it. Okay, so you put that aside and let it dry. Another one I made with a bit of color, because we've got 9, there's one centerpiece, and I thought it would be nice if that was a bit of color in the work. So I took some raw sienna and I started to paint some background. Don't think about it, just nice brush strokes. You can even make a bit of structure by dipping in a fabric. Voila, we put that aside to dry. And another technique is this one. So I will demonstrate it on the back side. So you take some black ink, and you use some kind of brush that has a very raw structure. This is actually for cleaning. I use that a lot for mark making. So you take a bit of black paint and you start scribbling on the paper. This is best before you spray on the round object. It will give a very special effect afterwards. You can also use a toothbrush or another brush that you don't use for anything else. Voila. So we put it aside and let it dry. I also made one with glue. No, it's very visible. So I took just some normal towel glue and I let it drip on the paper to make some lines. Of course, this needs to dry a little bit longer before you can work with it. Okay. Another example to create some structure is, for instance, some leaves from a tree that you put on the paper, but don't forget always before you spray to put on that round object. Be sure you shake your spray can every time before you use it. I'm going to use it again here. A bit. Don't worry, that's a little bit over. You will see later on in the whole work, it will come out nicely. So now we continue finishing the ones that haven't got the round yet. So this is the one we colored in the special raw umber. So I sprayed over it afterwards. So this is a special result. The one we did with the scratches, I sprayed the round object over. This is the one with the glue. So you take a bit of water and black ink, and you can wash over, which gives a very special effect of the glue coming through. You can make it as black or as light if you want. Of course, after this you will also need to spray over the round object. As you see, this is the effect with the glue. Okay, now we need to finish off the other rounds which are not interesting yet. So I took this one and I started to press with a bit of black ink on a cloth. I started to press in here. So it makes a kind of interesting structure that belongs to the other structure we had before spraying. So I'm going to leave it like this because I like the white space which is left on the top. Another one, I suggest to use a pen, or here I use a batik tool that you fill with black ink and you can write with it. So I'm just going to do some scratches and writing to fill it up. Maybe follow outside the leaf, which makes it a little bit more abstract, and connects it. So I kind of like this tool, but you will probably have the same effect if you use a normal felt pen. Okay, I'm going to leave it to this. So we're going to finish off all the other ones. This one, I used the cloth we used for covering before we sprayed. It's nice and black, so I used it to glue it on one of the empty images. Another one I'm going to try is like take a brush, fill it with black ink, and just roll the brush over the paper, which also gives a nice black structure. Don't worry to go outside. Voila. Okay. Don't hesitate to experiment. Just see that you always have a different structure, but it's still on the same background, and that is the round that you sprayed with your CD. This is the last one, and because it's already a little bit splashed with the can that was almost empty, I'm going to use that to make it a bit more accented by splashing more with black ink. Voilà. If it's not enough, you can also do it after the whole work is assembled, that you can do one or two a little bit more black if it's needed. Gives a nice depth effect. Now that they're all finished, you put them all 9 together and you check for the composition which one is best where. So you can still change if you say, okay, this is the lighter one, comes on the outside, but because I only have one colored one, I put that in the middle. Now we have to assemble the whole work and make it connected. Now I'm going to assemble all the pieces. I'm using a bigger paper where they all fit on. You can also glue them together with tape. Put them together with tape, or you put them on a bigger paper, which I think is a bit nicer. To do that, I use super spray adhesive, and you just spray it on the back. Super easy. And see that you leave equal spaces between the different pieces. Okay, so this is the final result. You can, of course, see in which direction it will be the best. It's hard to show on the camera. So you can leave it like this, or you can finish it a bit more, which I will show you now. So I like to connect things, so I was thinking to use the spray can again and just spray a little bit around. By using this fabric that I used a couple of times. But you have to be careful not to ruin the round forms that you did. I think it has a bit of a special effect to accent this fabric. Do it gently, that you don't ruin the rest of the work. Of course, I forgot my gloves again. Because you have to see you have a balance in the work. Because it's quite heavy here, I don't see it here, I'm gonna put a balance on the other side, so here. I think that's enough. So this is the end result. Don't forget to sign your name and take a picture and send it to me. I would really like to see the result of your work.